Okay, so we'll continue on to real estate versus real property. Now, real estate is a tangible item. Real estate is tangible. It is an aspect of property. While real property includes land and improvements. So when we talk about real property, it's anything that's improved is a tangible item as well. But it's more referring to land and improvements. The property is also viewed as personal or impersonal. So real property is immovable. You can't actually move it anywhere. And then while you have personal property, you can move that around. That would be your shadows and fixtures, like your drapes, your light fixtures, and those kinds of things. So now there's something called bundle of rights. That detached property talked about in fee simple in the first scenario. You've got this amazing home. You can barbecue there. You can plant flowers and trees and do all those sorts of things. In a bundle of rights scenario, you've got a whole bunch of rights that come in as more like kind of like a package. So the first thing is you have the right to sell or lease the property, first of all. Second of all, if it applies, there's a right of way, which is an easement, which we'll get into with another diagram very shortly. It's in the next paragraph. And this would be one of your bundle of rights that would allow you to move over somebody's property to get to something else that is necessary. Surface rights are a certain amount of height above the home. You're allowed to have things around there, air usage. Air rights is referring to one. The surface rights is the ground that you have. Say for example to do the barbecue, and the air rights would be for the exhaust to go up there, or a tree house on top of a higher tree in your backyard. You've got some air rights above the home that nobody's allowed to pass and give you any kind of interruption of your home. Mineral rights might happen if you're in a certain property where you might have oil coming out of the ground, and you'll have rights to those kinds of minerals that are on your property. Lastly, there are riparian rights, which is the right to use the lake or water that's close to your home, usually backing onto your home, and that's what that bundle of rights will cover and entail. So, just in the next paragraph, this is the last paragraph on page 4, you're looking at easement, and an easement is the right of way for you to pass over one property to the other to get to, say, something like a lake. So if I was neighboring to a property and I've got to cross this property because there's no other way to get to the lake, I would have maybe a small right of way at the top of the property to allow me to drive or walk over to get to the lake. So now there's a difference between a license as an easement. An easement is usually a permanent thing on top of the title, so it's registered with the property. You would know about it before you bought it or sold it. The person who's receiving the benefit of the easement, so if my property's on one side and I have to go through your property to get to the lake, I would be the dominant tenement. And since you would be giving it to me for the use of the easement, that would be a servient tenement. Okay? Now, the license is referred to a temporary agreement. So, say for example, I didn't need an easement, or I didn't have one on your property, but I need to cross your property to build a bridge for the city. I might need to get a contract with you, of course, to get your permission for a limited time, for maybe 2, 3 months, 6 months, to build that bridge over the lake, and I would just want to talk to you on a temporary basis, and it would be for a specified time period. Okay, so there's an excellent diagram on page 5 at the top, which shows you right away lot 1 to lot 2 to the lake. So you can look at now ownership limitations mostly by the government. Obviously, the police can regulate if there's something going on your property or there's a crime. We'll look at the option of the police coming to maybe interrupt the usage. Expropriate is land taken by the government. They will usually pay you if they have to take your land to, say, build a highway. So they'll pay you market value or a good value that's healthy and acceptable, and then they'll let you know that you've got to give up the land for some type of use that's necessary. Levy taxes, if you owe taxation, they can take away your home or take it to court, and it can be taken away from you. You could lose your home to not paying taxes. Escheat is the property returned to the government because no owner was actually found. So if there was an owner and they just moved away and never came back, that property could go back to the government in that case. Eminent domain is where the city is acquiring the private land for public use. That could be our parks, it could be a greenbelt, it could be anything. We have a lot of things like that. Private limitations are where the builder has already put a specific limitation on the property for you in advance. So let's say you bought a townhome in a certain area. That townhome could have a restriction that only your windows and garage doors have to be painted white. So that could be there. Okay. Limitations by private parties. Again, it's the same example. The builders put a color choice on the garage door of white. That's a limitation by a private party. The private party is a builder. You could also restrict like satellite dishes. You'll see that in a lot of condos. They'll say there's no satellite dishes allowed on the balconies. And of course, there's always subdivision parking limitations usually. Restrictive covenant is there is some limitations placed on the property for a specified time, just to make sure that some things have to conform for that time. In this case, again, we can use the same idea of the paint colors. That can apply one more time. That's a restrictive covenant as well. Implied covenant is putting a mortgage on a property. It's basically where somebody's making a promise to pay the mortgage, but also on top of that, they're actually promising to pay the taxes and keep the property clean, and also pay property insurance. And also, they're also saying that we're not going to allow any other encumbrances to happen. Encumbrances means that you don't get a roof job on top of the house and you owe a contractor a few $1,000s and you don't pay him, and then he's got to go put a lien on the property. So you're saying you're not going to do that. So that takes you over to page 5, and then that completes your chapter 1.